For more than a decade, MASH wasn't just a television show, it was a phenomenon. Airing from 1972 to 1983, it broke records, won hearts, and became one of the most influential series in television history. But behind the laughter, the wit, and the unforgettable one-liners from Hawkeye, Hot Lips, and Radar, something darker was brewing behind the scenes. Fans were left devastated as one by one, beloved cast members began to leave the show. Sometimes suddenly, sometimes quietly, and for years no one knew the real reasons why. Rumors of backstage feuds, burnout politics, and heartbreak spread like wildfire. The departures of Wayne Rogers, McLean Stevenson, and even Gary Berghoff were met with confusion and sadness. Yet the truth, as it turns out, was far more emotional than anyone realized. Loretta Swit, the actress who played the unforgettable Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan, kept silent for decades out of loyalty and love for her castmates. But in her later years before her passing, she finally decided to speak openly, revealing the untold reasons that tore the MASH family apart. Her words painted a picture not of anger or fame, but of exhaustion, personal struggle, and the emotional toll of portraying war for over a decade. We uncover what Loretta Swit finally revealed, the heartbreak, the pressure, and the painful truth behind why some of the most iconic faces of MASH walked away from one of the greatest shows ever made. When MASH first aired in 1972, few could have predicted that a show about war would redefine television history. It was more than just a sitcom. It was a reflection of humanity caught between duty and despair. Yet behind the laughter and clever writing, the cast carried emotional wounds that were rarely discussed, even decades later. Loretta Swit, who played the no-nonsense yet deeply compassionate Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan, would later reveal that the pressure to maintain the show's emotional balance took a serious toll on everyone involved. Loretta recalled that while the show delivered humor, it also demanded a level of emotional intensity that was exhausting. Every episode asked the cast to shift rapidly from slapstick comedy to gut-wrenching tragedy. Scenes of laughter would be followed by sudden moments of heartbreak, soldiers dying, friendships tested, and characters questioning the morality of war. For actors like Alan Alda and Wayne Rogers, this wasn't just acting. It was an emotional marathon. Loretta explained that many of the cast members began feeling the strain as early as the third season. The schedule was brutal, the scripts were demanding, and the pressure to keep ratings high was constant. "We weren't just making a show," she once said. "We were carrying the emotional weight of the world on our shoulders, week after week." McLean Stevenson, who portrayed Colonel Henry Blake, was among the first to express his exhaustion. Stevenson loved the camaraderie of the cast, but struggled with feeling underused. He believed his character could offer more than comic relief. His departure in Season 3 shocked both fans and co-stars, especially when his character's tragic death was revealed in one of the most unforgettable TV moments of all time. Loretta later admitted that McLean's exit marked a turning point on set. It changed the energy. It reminded us how fragile everything was, both in the story and in real life. Wayne Rogers, who played Trapper John, also left soon after, citing creative differences. But Loretta revealed there was more to it. Wayne had grown frustrated with the show's growing focus on Alan Alda's character, Hawkeye Pierce. Yet beneath that frustration, Loretta said, was a deeper issue: emotional fatigue. Wayne was tired of living in that headspace, she shared. "You can't spend every day pretending to laugh through war without it affecting you." Even Alan Alda, the heart of MASH, was not immune to the toll. Loretta described moments where Alda, normally upbeat and passionate, would sit quietly between takes, reflecting on the heavier themes of the show. "Alan gave his soul to that role," she said. "He carried the weight of the stories, the message, and the responsibility to make people both laugh and think." Loretta herself struggled as the years went by. Playing Hot Lips, a woman torn between authority, vulnerability, and compassion, forced her to confront emotions she didn't always want to face. She admitted that at times she questioned whether she could keep going. The hardest part was leaving the set and realizing that what we were doing wasn't just entertainment, it was truth disguised as comedy. As the seasons passed, one by one, the familiar faces began to leave. Each departure chipped away at the heart of the show, leaving those who remained with a growing sense of melancholy. Loretta said the set began to feel less like a comedy stage and more like a memorial for friendships and memories that were fading away. MASH became a masterpiece, but it came at a cost. And as Loretta Swit would later confess, that cost wasn't fame, money, or time. It was emotional peace. When McLean Stevenson decided to leave MASH, it sent shockwaves through Hollywood, and an even deeper tremor through the cast and crew. Stevenson, who portrayed the beloved and often bumbling Colonel Henry Blake, had been one of the show's cornerstones from the beginning. His humor, warmth, and ability to balance comedy with quiet compassion made him a fan favorite. But as Loretta Swit later revealed, the decision to walk away from MASH wasn't as simple as people believed. In interviews years later, Loretta confessed that McLean's departure was rooted in both professional frustration and personal longing. Stevenson felt overshadowed, convinced that his character was not being developed as deeply as others, particularly Alan Alda's Hawkeye. He wanted to do more than just deliver punchlines, Loretta shared. McLean wanted to explore Henry Blake's humanity, the man behind the jokes, the commander trying to keep his sanity in a war zone. But creative differences weren't the only reason. Stevenson was also struggling with the grueling shooting schedule and the emotional toll of the show's subject matter. MASH wasn't just another sitcom. It was a dark comedy about the Korean War, filled with heartbreak disguised as humor. That balance took a toll on many cast members, and McLean often expressed that he needed to move on to find his happiness again. What the public didn't know was how heartbreaking his exit truly was for the cast. Loretta remembered the day they filmed Colonel Blake's farewell scene, a moment where Henry Blake says goodbye to his team, heading home to the U.S. after completing his service. The cast believed it was simply a warm send-off, but only a handful of people, including the producers and writers, knew what was coming next. After filming the farewell, the cast returned to shoot the final scene of the episode, where Radar enters the operating room to announce, Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake's plane was shot down over the Sea of Japan. There were no survivors. Loretta later said that the shock you see on the actors' faces in that moment was completely real. None of them knew the ending beforehand. It was devastating, she admitted. We were crying not just for Henry Blake, but for McLean, for losing him as a friend and a part of our family. Alan Alda was reportedly emotional after the scene, needing time to process what had happened. Gary Berghoff, who played Radar, broke down in tears so deeply that production had to pause. For Loretta, it was one of the most haunting days of her career. We went home that night and no one spoke, she said quietly. We felt like we'd actually lost someone. When the episode aired in March 1975, audiences across America were blindsided. CBS received thousands of letters, many from viewers who said they cried uncontrollably. It was the first time a sitcom had dared to end a character's story with such tragic finality, and it forever changed television storytelling. After leaving MASH, McLean Stevenson struggled to replicate the magic he had found with the show. His subsequent series, such as Hello, Larry, never reached the same success. Loretta once said that McLean carried deep regret about leaving. He told me once, I thought I was leaving MASH to go find something better. But the truth is, there was nothing better than MASH. Loretta often described Stevenson's departure as the emotional breaking point for many of the remaining cast. It was the moment when MASH stopped being just a job. It became something sacred, something fragile. We realized then that MASH was bigger than any of us, she said. It wasn't just about surviving the war on screen. It was about surviving the loss of each other off screen. By the time Season 4 began, the laughter on set had changed. It was still genuine, but it carried an undertone of sadness, a reminder that every goodbye on MASH was a little too real. While McLean Stevenson's departure shocked fans, the exit of Wayne Rogers, and who played the charming, witty, and level-headed trapper John McIntyre, came as an even greater surprise to those behind the scenes. There was no grand farewell episode, no emotional send-off. One season ended with Trapper by Hawkeye's side, and the next began with him simply gone. For years, viewers wondered why such a vital character had vanished overnight. But Loretta Swit, reflecting on the chaos of that time, revealed that the truth was far more complicated than anyone outside the cast could have known. Wayne Rogers, like many of his castmates, loved MASH. He admired its blend of humor and humanity and the way it dared to show the futility of war through laughter. But as the show evolved, Rogers began feeling frustrated by what he saw as a shift in focus, away from the ensemble dynamic and increasingly toward Alan Alda's Hawkeye Pierce. Loretta admitted that this imbalance caused tension on set. Wayne wanted Trapper to be more than just Hawkeye's sidekick, she said. He was proud of the character, but he felt that his voice wasn't being heard anymore. By the end of the third season, those creative frustrations had reached a breaking point. Rogers had grown tired of fighting for storylines that showed Trapper's intelligence and compassion. He loved the humor, but he also wanted the heart, Loretta explained. He wanted Trapper to be seen as a doctor, a friend, a human being, not just a punchline or a shadow. But it wasn't only about screen time. Rogers had also grown disillusioned with the show's management and the strictness of his contract. He reportedly refused to sign a new agreement that limited his creative control. When negotiations broke down, Wayne simply walked away, quietly, without fanfare, without goodbyes. He didn't want to make a scene, Loretta said. He just wanted peace. His departure hit the cast hard, especially Alan Alda. The two had developed genuine camaraderie both on and off screen. Their banter and chemistry made the early seasons of MASH sparkle with authenticity. But when Rogers left, Alda was left to carry the show's emotional and comedic weight almost entirely on his own. Alan felt it deeply, Loretta recalled. He lost a partner, a brother. It wasn't just acting. Those two really leaned on each other. When Season 4 premiered, the absence of Trapper John was immediately felt. The writers decided to introduce a new character, B.J. Honeycutt, played by Mike Farrell, a kind-hearted and more grounded surgeon meant to fill the void. Farrell fit in beautifully, but even he later admitted it took a long time to escape Trapper's shadow. Fans kept asking, "What happened to Trapper John?" And the only explanation came through a brief line of dialogue. Trapper had been discharged from the army and sent home. No reunion, no final moment with Hawkeye, just an empty bunk and a sense of loss. Loretta said that moment mirrored real life. "We never got to say goodbye to Wayne either," she confessed. He was there one season and gone the next. It was heartbreaking because MASH had become a family. You expect people to leave war, not each other. Over time, Rogers distanced himself from Hollywood, pursuing successful business ventures instead. He rarely spoke about MASH, but Loretta mentioned that despite the silence, there was no bitterness, just sadness over how it all ended. "He told me once that he didn't regret leaving," she said softly. But he did regret how suddenly it happened. He wished he could have said goodbye. The absence of Wayne Rogers marked another emotional fracture within the MASH family. By then, the laughter on set often came with tears. Every cast member knew that their bond, as strong as it was, could never truly be the same. As Loretta put it, "The war stories we told on screen were nothing compared to the battles we fought in our hearts behind the scenes." As the years passed and MASH continued to evolve, one figure quietly carried the weight of the entire production: Alan Alda. While his portrayal of Hawkeye Pierce made him one of the most recognizable faces in television history, Loretta Swit revealed that Alda's journey behind the scenes was anything but easy. "He was our leader," she said, "but being the leader of a show like MASH came with a heavy cost." When Wayne Rogers and McLean Stevenson left, the emotional burden of maintaining the show's heart fell squarely on Alda's shoulders. He wasn't just an actor anymore. He became a writer, a director, and the moral compass of MASH. Loretta described how Alda would often stay late on set, revising scripts or coaching fellow cast members through emotional scenes. "Alan wanted every moment to mean something," she said. He refused to let the show lose its humanity, but the pressure was immense. Balancing humor and heartbreak in a show about war was emotionally draining. Loretta recalled how Alda struggled with the responsibility of keeping MASH authentic without letting it sink into despair. He carried everyone's expectations, she explained. Every laugh, every tear. He felt it all. As MASH moved into its later seasons, the tone shifted. The jokes were still there, but the stories grew darker, more introspective. The laughter came from a place of survival rather than joy. We weren't just making a TV show anymore, Loretta said. We were holding up a mirror to humanity. Loretta also revealed that the emotional toll of filming such heavy material began to show on all of them. Many nights, the cast would leave the set in silence, drained from scenes depicting death, grief, and the unending futility of war. People think comedy is easy, she said. But MASH wasn't just comedy. It was truth disguised as laughter. Alan Alda once confided in Loretta that he often questioned whether he could continue. He told me that some days he woke up feeling like he couldn't face another script about loss or pain, she remembered. But he always showed up, for the crew, for the audience, and for us. His leadership kept the show together when it could have easily fallen apart. When the final episode aired in 1983, titled Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen, it became a television event watched by over 100 million people, still one of the most viewed finales in history. But Loretta said that behind the scenes, it was a day filled with real tears. We weren't just saying goodbye to our characters, she recalled. We were saying goodbye to a family that had lived through war together, both on screen and off. Loretta often reflected on that day in later interviews. We cried like children, she said. No one wanted to leave. We stood around after the final take, holding each other, knowing we'd never experience something like that again. Years later, as age and time caught up with her, Loretta continued to speak about MASH with the same reverence she always had. That show wasn't just a job, she once said. It was a lifetime. It was a lesson in love, loss, and humanity. And before her passing, she finally spoke openly about what it truly meant to be part of something so powerful. People always ask why the cast left MASH, Loretta reflected. The truth is, we left because we had to. It wasn't burnout, fame, or money. It was because living in that world, on even a fictional one, became too heavy for our hearts. We carried those stories inside us, and sometimes the only way to heal was to let go. For fans, MASH will forever remain a masterpiece. But for Loretta and her co-stars, it was something even deeper, a reflection of life itself. It taught us, she said softly, that even in the darkest places there's always room for laughter and love.